At my own engagement dinner, my aunt leaned across the table and whispered something to my cousin. I wasn't supposed to hear it, but I did. While she's distracted, go to the apartment and get the file before she finds it. My cousin immediately stood up from the table, grabbed his car keys, and left. Everyone pretended nothing had happened. The music kept playing, the waiters kept serving food, and my family kept smiling as if everything was perfectly normal. I sat frozen in my chair. My name is Ava Collins, and until that night, I thought I knew my family. I was wrong, very wrong. Looking back now, that whisper was the moment everything started falling apart. The strange thing was that nobody seemed surprised when my cousin left. Not my aunt, not my uncle, not even my mother. It was as if they had all expected it. I tried to convince myself I had misunderstood. Maybe there was another file. Maybe it had nothing to do with me. Maybe I was overthinking. But deep down, I knew better. For months, little things hadn't made sense. My aunt constantly asked questions about my finances. My mother wanted copies of documents she had no reason to need. My uncle seemed unusually interested whenever I talked about work. At the time, I brushed it off as family curiosity. Now, I wasn't so sure. An hour passed, then another. Finally, my cousin returned. The moment he walked into the restaurant, I knew something was wrong. His face was pale. His hands were shaking. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. My aunt immediately stood. "Did you get it?" she asked. The entire table went silent. "No." My aunt's expression darkened. "What do you mean, no?" He looked around the table before answering. "It's gone." My stomach dropped. "What is gone?" I asked. Nobody answered. My aunt slowly sat back down. For the first time in my life, I saw genuine fear in her eyes. Dinner ended shortly afterward. Everyone suddenly had somewhere else to be. Excuses appeared out of nowhere. Within 15 minutes, the celebration was over. I drove home, confused and angry. The entire situation felt wrong, like there was a secret conversation happening around me that I wasn't allowed to hear. The moment I reached my apartment, I noticed something strange. The hallway light outside my unit was on. It was usually off after midnight. Then I saw my door. It wasn't fully closed. A narrow crack showed darkness inside. My heart started racing. I knew I had locked it before leaving. Slowly, I pushed the door open. Nothing appeared stolen. The television was still there. My laptop remained on the desk. The furniture was untouched. Yet something felt horribly wrong. Someone had definitely been inside. I stepped farther into the apartment. Then I saw it. The drawer in my desk was open. Inside that drawer should have been a black folder. A folder I had hidden months earlier. A folder containing copies of financial documents I didn't fully understand. The folder was gone. My pulse thundered in my ears. Someone hadn't broken in to rob me. They had come for those papers. Only those papers. I immediately called the police. Within 30 minutes, 2 officers arrived. They carefully examined the apartment while I answered questions. One officer, Detective Mason Reed, seemed particularly interested in the missing folder. "What exactly was inside?" he asked. I hesitated. "Property records, bank statements, some legal documents." "Belonging to who?" "My family." His expression changed. "Your family?" I nodded. Months earlier, I had accidentally discovered a hidden storage room in my grandmother's house. Inside were dozens of boxes filled with paperwork. Most seemed boring: old receipts, tax forms, insurance records. Then I found documents carrying my name, my full legal name. The problem was I had never signed any of them, yet my signature appeared everywhere. At first I thought it was a mistake. Then I found more, and more. Eventually I took photographs and copied several files. Something wasn't right. I knew that much, but I never imagined anyone would break into my apartment to recover them. Detective Reed listened carefully. When I finished, he closed his notebook. "Miss Collins, I think these documents may be more important than you realize." The next morning, my phone rang. It was my mother. I ignored the call. She called again, and again. By noon she had called 11 times. Finally I answered. "Ava," her voice sounded strained. "Where are the documents?" No greeting, no concern, just the documents. I felt cold. So they were important. Silence. Then she sighed. "You need to give them back." "Why?" "You wouldn't understand." Her voice softened. "Some things are complicated." "No," I interrupted. "Forgery isn't complicated." The silence that followed felt endless. Then she hung up. That afternoon, Detective Reed called. His voice sounded serious. "We need you to come in." My stomach tightened. "Why?" "We identified fingerprints inside your apartment." "Whose?" There was a pause. Everything stopped. My uncle. The man who always gave me birthday cards. The man who taught me how to ride a bicycle. The man who attended every school play. His fingerprints were inside my apartment. I drove to the station immediately. When I arrived, Detective Reed showed me security footage from my building. There was no doubt. My uncle entered using a copied key. 20 minutes later, my cousin arrived. Then both men left carrying a black folder. My folder. I stared at the screen. I felt sick. The betrayal hurt more than the crime. These weren't strangers. This was my family. Detective Reed folded his hands. "There's something else." I looked up. The documents connect several properties, offshore accounts, and business entities. "What does that mean?" "It means somebody may have been hiding assets using other people's identities, including mine." The realization hit me instantly. My name wasn't on those papers by accident. I wasn't a witness. I was part of the scheme, without my knowledge, without my consent. For years. That evening I went to my mother's house. Not because I wanted answers. She opened the door and immediately knew why I was there.
"You shouldn't have involved the police."
Those were her first words. Not hello, not how are you, not are you okay, just criticism. I laughed bitterly. "Someone broke into my apartment." "We were trying to protect you." "No." I stepped inside. "You were trying to protect yourselves." My mother looked exhausted, older than I had ever seen her. Finally, she sat down and confessed. Not everything, but enough. Years ago, several business deals had gone wrong. Money disappeared. Taxes were avoided. Assets were transferred. Names were needed. Clean names, family names, my name, my cousin's name, even names belonging to relatives who had passed away. A giant web of lies stretched across decades. Every year it grew larger. Every year it became harder to escape. "Your grandfather started it," she whispered, and everyone just kept going. I stared at her. "You forged my signature." Tears filled her eyes. "We didn't think you'd ever find out." Everyone blamed someone else. Nobody accepted responsibility. The people who spent years demanding loyalty suddenly couldn't stop betraying each other. The irony wasn't lost on me. The loudest voices about family values were the first to save themselves. Court proceedings followed. Lawyers negotiated endlessly. News outlets reported every development. My family name appeared in headlines I wished I could avoid. Friends called. Coworkers asked questions. Strangers formed opinions. Through it all, I kept moving forward. One day at a time, one breath at a time. The hardest conversation came from my cousin. Months after everything became public, he asked to meet. We sat across from each other in a small coffee shop. Neither of us spoke for a long time. Finally, he broke the silence. "I'm sorry." I looked at him carefully. He seemed different. Smaller somehow. Less certain. "I never wanted any of this." "Then why did you do it?" He stared into his coffee. "Because saying no wasn't allowed in our family." I understood exactly what he meant. The rules had always been simple. Obey, stay quiet, protect the family. Questions were betrayal. Truth was dangerous. Independence was selfishness. For years, we all followed those rules. Some willingly, some reluctantly. But we followed them. Until everything collapsed. Eventually, the investigations ended. The court cases concluded. The headlines faded. Life moved on. The world always does. One rainy Saturday morning, nearly a year later, I sat alone in my apartment drinking coffee. The same desk. The same window overlooking the city. But everything felt different. A cardboard box sat beside me. Inside were old photographs, letters, documents, pieces of a life that no longer existed. Slowly, I sorted through them. Some I kept. Most I threw away. Then I found a picture of myself at 12 years old. I was smiling, standing beside relatives I'd barely recognized anymore. For a moment, sadness washed over me. Not because I missed them, because I missed who I thought they were. Those people never really existed. They were stories I told myself. Comforting stories. Necessary stories. But stories nonetheless. I placed the photograph back into the box. Then I carried everything downstairs. Outside stood a large recycling container. Without hesitation, I dropped the box inside. Photographs, letters, old records, years of emotional weight, gone. Not erased, just released. When I returned upstairs, sunlight was breaking through the clouds. For the first time in a very long time, my apartment felt peaceful. No secrets, no lies, no hidden files, no fear. Just quiet. Real quiet. The kind that heals instead of hurts. My phone buzzed. A message appeared from my fiancé. Pancakes or waffles? I laughed. A simple question. A normal question. The kind of question people ask when life is healthy. I typed back immediately. Pancakes. Extra chocolate chips. A few seconds later, another message appeared. Love you. I smiled. And in that moment, I understood something important. Family isn't the people who share your last name. It's the people who make you feel safe. The people who tell you the truth. The people who stay when staying is hard. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't exposing a lie. Sometimes it's building a life where lies aren't necessary anymore. I set down my phone and looked out the window. The storm was finally over. And for the first time in years, the future looked brighter than the past.